Good afternoon. On behalf of the Inter-American Development Bank, we welcome you to the launch event, Tecnolatinas 2021, the coming of age of the startup ecosystem in Latin America and the Caribbean. This event will be held in English with interpretation into Spanish. Para escuchar el evento en español, haga clic en el icono del mundo que encontrará en la parte baja de su pantalla y seleccione el idioma. And now, the opening remarks from Irene Arias, CEO of IDB Lab. Irene, the floor is yours.
Happy Women's Day. Thank you for joining us to the launch of the Tecnolatinas report. My name is Irene Arias Hofman. I'm the CEO of the Inter-American Development Bank Innovation Lab, IDB Lab. And as many of you know, our job is to deploy financing, connections, and knowledge to foster innovation for inclusion in Latin America and the Caribbean. And we've been working for almost 3 decades to support entrepreneurs, investors, and other ecosystem players taking risks, pushing the region forward to innovate inclusively and with high impact. And this past year, we all know Latin America and the Caribbean had a huge hit, worse than the rest of the world. The toll of the pandemic was tremendous, but with that, we also saw resilience and agility, and entrepreneurs were at the center of it. If there is one thing that will accelerate humanity's recovery, it's innovation. And this is what the Tecnolatinas report is about. The force of innovation in Latin America and the Caribbean, what the future may hold for our ecosystems and industries. And I want to thank Mauricio Claver-Carone, our president, for being here with us today, and our special guest. I'm going to start with Ignacio Peña, who's the author of the report. He's also a strategist and angel investor, an international speaker, the CEO of Surfing Tsunamis, and he's a real thinker and doer, and he's been collaborating with IDB Lab for quite some time now. So Ignacio, welcome, and I can't wait to hear the insights from the report.
Thank you, Irene. I don't know if you can see my screen right now.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Such a pleasure to be here with you. It's an honor. And to introduce the Tecnolatinas report, which basically talks about the technology companies that are coming out of Latin America. For the first time in the history of the region, we're seeing the region creating technology-based companies at scale, and this has the power to transform the region. And today, in this report, we will see that this ecosystem has already come of age, and it can really be an engine for the transformation of Latin America. So we're super excited with this opportunity to tell you about this. This report is basically building on the work that we did 4 years ago together with the IDB Lab and NXTP Ventures, where we saw an ecosystem that was rising very quickly, but that was worth about a little bit less than $40 billion, and had less than 300 startups actually that were worth a significant amount. And today what we see is an ecosystem that already has 1,005 startups that are worth more than $5 million, that have raised more than $1 million. We have come up with this database, basically canvassing or analyzing a number of sources like Crunchbase, like Distrito, PitchBook, and LAVCA, certainly, and a number of other sources also to curate and validate the information that we were gathering, and also to provide depth in terms of what are startups doing, where are they based, where do they have activities, what is the profile of their founders, a number of dimensions in order to get a good picture of what was going on. And what we see is that the ecosystem is already worth $221 billion. I mean, the sum of the value of all these startups is already more than $220 billion. And that there are 28 companies worth over $1 billion, and that they generate almost a quarter of a million jobs directly, I mean, direct employees, but also you have freelancers who work with them and many hundreds of people who make a livelihood buying and selling through these, the platforms of these companies. Compared to 4 years ago, what we see is 2.6 times more startups using the same methodology that we used last year. We see 2.6 times more startups. We see 3.1 times more companies worth over $1 billion, and we see almost 6 times more value. So it's a massive explosion taking place over the last 4 years. Which already, I mean, also strengthens or highlights the strength of the signal that we are seeing. When we take a longer perspective and we see the last decade, what we see is that in the last decade, these companies have gone from being worth about $7 billion to $221 billion, so $214 billion in value creation starting from 7. Whereas in the same time that traditional companies basically saw a significant destruction in value, a decrease in value of almost $500 billion. So what this shows is this is a powerful growth engine that is very resilient and can add another layer of growth to the region and can complement and sort of provide a balance to the traditional companies, particularly in the context of this technology revolution. When we look at where these companies are coming from, we see that the epicenter of the revolution is Brazil, with about half of the startups coming from there. But we also see that Argentina has a very strong weight in terms of the value creation, almost 50% of the value creation coming from the startups from this country. But also we see that a number of countries have already created ecosystems worth more than $100 million. There are 8 countries, and they include small countries in terms of the geographic size and also the population, like Uruguay. So it shows that this is something that is relevant for all the region, particularly the countries that need to make a leapfrog in terms of development. When we look at where are the large companies based, and these companies represent most of the value creation of the ecosystem to date, we see again a picture where most of these companies are coming out of Brazil, but also from Argentina. We also see, as we saw before, that small countries can also create these large companies, because today these companies can internationalize, and this basically provides a huge platform for the growth of the small countries, which don't have to limit themselves to what their natural resources are or to the size of their market. They can really tap into international markets in a very accelerated time frame. When we look at the geographic footprint of these and strategies of these companies, what we see is that there are 5 strategies. The first one is focused on Brazil, mostly done by Brazilian startups. So that accounts for more than 40% of the startups. Then almost 20% are global, 15% are regional, and then 23% are focused on local markets outside of Brazil, where it's Mexico or the other countries of the region. But when we look at value creation, we see that 67% of the value creation is concentrated on international plays, where it's global or regional plays, and the only local plays that have been successful are the local plays focused on the Brazilian market. So I think that this calls for international cooperation. It calls for a new mindset, and it shows the opportunity that this ecosystem presents us to create an integrated hemispheric economy. And we also see that there is a stark difference in the pattern of internationalization between the companies that are coming from Brazil, where 74% of the value from the Brazilian companies comes from local strategies. When we compare that to the other countries, we see that 95% of the value comes from international strategies. So clearly, outside of Brazil, internationalization, international cooperation, and eliminating the barriers for the international expansion and the success of these startups is really crucial. When we look at sectors, we see that there is a strong concentration in terms of value creation in fintech and e-commerce, and it goes beyond Mercado Libre. I mean, it's really those 2 sectors that are sort of hotspots in the ecosystem in terms of capital and value creation. But also, we see 16 sectors with startups worth more than $500 million. And what we see is that every time that you have a sector where there is a unicorn emerging, so several sectors are very close to that, there is a lot of new startups coming through, and sort of more capital goes to that ecosystem, because basically it's sort of a new vertical has been created. So we see a number of verticals that are growing and that present the opportunity for additional growth for the next decade. When we look at more broadly at the next decade and sort of the past and the present and the future, we basically see that there is a massive opportunity for growth over the next decade. Where in terms of ecosystem value, we saw that the value started at 7 billion at the beginning of the decade. Today it's at 221. We see the opportunity for a multi-trillion-dollar value in the ecosystem. And in terms of annual venture capital investments, they have gone multiplied from $67 million in 2009 to $4.6 billion in 2019. We think that there is an opportunity for more than $30 billion of in annual investments in this sector by 2030. And these numbers are, I would say, conservative. Conservative because when we compare with a country like Israel, we see that there's an opportunity for over 100-fold increase in venture capital activity on a per capita basis, and almost a 30x opportunity on a penetration of GDP basis. And when we consider that Israel continues to grow year over year, even though it's the most developed venture capital ecosystem relative to the size of the economy, and we see that the global venture capital industry has multiplied by 5 times, and the technology revolution is accelerating and will accelerate over the next decade, then it's very easy to see that there is an opportunity for massive continued growth over the next decade, particularly because the barriers for the creation of new successful startups are falling down. The time that it took to create a $1 billion company used to be decades. Today, it's only a few years, a couple of years. So what do we need to do in order for this to become a reality? I think there are 3 levers that are highlighted in the report. The first one is activating new verticals and new geographies. The second one is boosting the ecosystems that are already in place and the startups that are already sort of making their headway or opening new ground. And also, third, it's shaping the ecosystem so that we maximize the social and environmental impact, and that we include all the minorities that can contribute to the diversity and the strength and the resilience of this ecosystem. First, in terms of geography, we see that there are 19 countries that have not yet activated an ecosystem worth more than $100 million. They represent 21% of the population in the region. And this kind of ecosystem can be a huge opportunity for leapfrogging into the future. So we clearly see that there is an opportunity to activate new geographies. Second, we see an opportunity, even in developed economies, to activate new cities. 84% of the Tecnolatinas are based in cities that have more than 1 million people. And we have 80 metropolitan regions with more than 1 million people, but only 12 have more than 10 Tecnolatinas with the definition that we presented. So, I mean, only 12 out of 80. So clearly there is a massive opportunity to spread this revolution throughout the region. When we look at sectors, we see the opportunity to boost the investments and the activity in deep tech, for example. So if you look at the size of that circle, you see the investments in deep tech sectors or frontier tech sectors like artificial intelligence or cybersecurity or Internet of Things. And when we compare the size of those bubbles with deep tech, all of deep tech in Latin America, we see in the Caribbean, we clearly see that we're very far away from our potential, particularly when we consider that Israel has 9 million people, we have 650 almost million people. So there's a massive opportunity in deep tech, particularly given the hundreds of thousands of scientists that we have in our region doing research and development. Another way to show this opportunity is that when we compare the relative weight of corporate venture capital in Latin America, which is roughly 10% of the venture capital in the region, to the US, where it's more than half of the venture capital, we see an opportunity for a 10x growth and to almost double the size of the overall 10x growth in terms of total venture capital activity, corporate venture capital activity, and almost that would represent an almost doubling of the ecosystem just with that lever. And then we said that there's an opportunity for also shaping the ecosystem. And clearly we said that there is a lot of activity around e-commerce and fintech, and these engines are democratizing access to a number of needs and geographies, but also there are new levers that could be activated. Things like satellite internet, for example, there are massive constellations being built that could provide a fast internet to the 50% of the population in Latin America that don't have access to internet. Or when we look at 3D printed houses, they could significantly reduce the cost of social housing to close the housing gap. Or when we look at renewable energy, can generate massive amounts of jobs and also reduce the cost of energy. And in that way, all these technologies that I'm highlighting and levers that I'm highlighting are still to be activated and still to be fully exploited, and they present sort of the opportunity that is ahead of us for the transformation, the positive transformation of the lives of people throughout the region. Finally, given that today is Women's Day, but also because of the importance that this has, both in terms of enabling the growth, but also in strengthening the quality of the ecosystem and also in humanizing this ecosystem, I think that there is a clear opportunity in terms of an increased level of activity from female founders. Today, we have about 10% of the startups with at least one female founder in the region, whereas in the US, it's 22% and rising. So there is an opportunity to significantly step up our game, and I think that the region has been doing a lot of effort in that dimension, but there's still a way to go. So with that, I'll close, and please ask me any questions that you want.
Thank you so much, Ignacio. And I know that this is going to become a reference for the industry, and these are impressive figures that give us something, give us a lot of reason to be optimist, realist, with strong data behind. An impetus to really uncover and promote those verticals that are still untapped. I want to focus on how to also ensure that small countries accelerate their participation in this opportunity. So what can you tell us about the role and how we can accelerate the growth of the industry in those small countries?
Well, small countries actually have an advantage, not a disadvantage in this case, because I mean, when you look at some of the most successful countries, I mean, you can clearly see that countries like Israel, like Singapore, like Estonia, they're not like large countries. It's much, today, agility is the name of the game. So being small is actually an enabling factor. What is critical in order, and you see this happening in Uruguay, for example, you see that happening in Guatemala. So what I would recommend is looking both at the international countries that have had success, I named a few, but also the countries that are within the region, like Uruguay or Guatemala, that are being successful. And I think that connecting with the people who are making that a reality, I think that there is an opportunity for accelerating the pace of learning through dialogue and collaboration. So we're not isolated, we're really integrated, our nature is to collaborate, and here is an opportunity to collaborate because we're stronger if we all join this revolution. So everybody, I think, will be, everybody that wants to join, I think will find a lot of collaboration and people being willing to help. But how to start, I think that in terms of how to start, I think that the critical thing is getting some early successes and looking for the people who are already doing this and starting with, these things grow from the bottom. So I would focus on early stage venture capital activity and sort of creating matching funds, following the example of Israel, creating matching funds in order to accelerate or facilitate that early stage activity, but also signaling that this is important for the future of the country and creating the policies to enable that to become a reality.
Well, thank you, Ignacio. And at IDB Lab, we're trying to kind of walk the talk. So we, as you know, recently put out a call for venture capital funds, emphasizing fund managers that are covering some of those smaller or more nascent ecosystems, and the response was impressive. So we're in the process of uncovering some new fund managers that we can back up. We have just a few more minutes, less than 5 minutes before I hand over to Mauricio, and I want to go to the core of why we're doing this. We're doing this because we want to improve the lives of poor and vulnerable population in the region. So what can you tell us about the potential and some of what can ignite the solutions that are not just making things easier for those that already have access to services but also to improve the lives of those that need it most?
I would say that there are 4 ways in which this ecosystem can help. The first one is igniting growth engines. And I mean, clearly technology enables us to activate new engines that can add trillions of dollars of additional economic activity by 2030, and this ecosystem plays a very strong role in activating those engines. The second thing is lowering the cost of accessing basic needs. So take the case of fintech. Fintech allows us to have 10 times cheaper cost of serving new customers. So 50% of the population is not bankerized. We could provide financial services to everyone with these kind of technologies. So reducing the cost of access to basic needs, I think, is another powerful way. So the first one has to do with creating jobs and growth. The second one has to do with lowering the cost of accessing basic needs. The third one has to do with lowering the environmental footprint. And I think that has an impact because the most vulnerable or the lower income people are most vulnerable to climate change, or everything that we do in that dimension is important. And finally, the fourth dimension, which I think is super important, is that we can shift from a mindset of thinking that natural resources are the most valuable resource that we have in the region to a future in which we realize that the most valuable resources that we have is people, our talent. And I think that this ecosystem shows that talent leads to value creation. And this is a factor that can really help us to step up to another playing field, to really do a leapfrog and change the development paradigms. And I think that will benefit tremendously the most vulnerable.
Thank you, Ignacio. One last one in just one phrase, if you could, because you were the only Latin American Caribbean author who participated in the book Future Shock, What to Expect in the Next 50 Years. So one thing that you expect or projection for the next 10 years for Latin America and the Caribbean?
If we look at the ecosystem, I would think more than 100 unicorns, a multi-trillion-dollar ecosystem, tens of billions of dollars invested every year, and also a new leadership rising in Latin America that is entrepreneurial, that is innovative, that is ethical, that is collaborative, that is sort of a refreshing leadership that can really help us to step up the game and reinvent also the traditional industries. Well,
thank you, Ignacio. This is a perfect segue to the next segment with Mauricio and two of the entrepreneurs from our region, Anabel Pérez from NovoPayment and Martin Migoya, founder and CEO of Globant. So thank you so much for these insights, and hopefully this will be motivating for leaders in the ecosystem to engage more thoughtfully, with more impact and more inclusively. Mauricio, over to you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, Irene and Ignacio. It doesn't take me much to get me energized, but you really got me excited. And I have to say, for us here at IDB and for IDB Lab, obviously, we are the only international financial institution that has an entity like IDB Lab focused on innovation and focused on these type of activities. But for us to not scale it, for us to not be thinking about igniting this 24/7 would be malpractice. You just saw the opportunities, and there's going to be no greater partner to really scaling this and seeing that fruition, that ecosystem, the multi-trillion-dollar ecosystem, all the potential of this. We're not going to rest, and you're going to have that this community will have no greater partner than IDB and IDB Lab. now to what I'm supposed to say in my script. You got me so excited, Ignacio. That was awesome. I saw those numbers and I'm like, we got a lot of work for us. But hey, you know, it's you can see where it'll take us. Anyway, it's an honor to be here, obviously, in International Women's Day, and I can think of no better way to doing so than with Anabel Pérez, who is the founder and CEO of NovoPayment, and with Martin Migoya, who is the co-founder and CEO of Globant and obviously we're going to have a more conversation of this. And look, it's no coincidence that we're launching the Tecnolatinas report today, a day to celebrate women's achievements and to recognize where more work needs to be done, especially after this unprecedented year, which had regressive effects on gender equality. And it's a fact that women have borne the brunt of the economic and social fallout. And as primary caretakers, women have juggled the children at home, relatives who have fallen ill, and that's further diminished the ability to participate in the workforce. So on this note, I'm sticking to script now. I have a question, first question for both of you. How can the entrepreneurship ecosystem respond to this challenge, and what steps did your respective companies take to support women? And I will obviously begin first with Anabel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to share this panel with you, Mauricio, Irene, Ignacio, and Martin. So last year was a very difficult year for all of us. We were able to discover new strength, not only as organization, but also as individuals. At NovoPayment, we work very close with all our collaborators, employees, and customers to ensure that we were close to them. And we promised to all of our employees that we will do our best to maintain their jobs and to help them to pass the situation that we all have been experiencing. From the entrepreneurial perspective, I think we all, and in particular women, we need to step up and ask for support, not only from our employees, but also but also from the community in which we are part of. So it is the time to look for mentorship, for coaching, to identify new ways to solve problems, to become very innovative, and to execute. I mean, being an entrepreneur, it's about execution, it's about solving problems, and be committed to.
Sounds like I've learned that as president of the IDB, it's about execution as well too. So I'm already taking notes in that regards. Martin, I don't know if
yeah. Thank you for the invitation, Mauricio, Irene, Nacho, very good report, and Anabel, the pleasure to be here too. And I would connect the two things. I think that this year, in my perspective, demonstrated that diversity and adversity are things that when adversity comes, diversity is even more important than ever. And we felt an organization that through diversity embrace and help our Glovers and our people around the world through this entrepreneurial culture that we have at Globant. We felt that we provide that sense that Anabel was mentioning, of the sense of belonging, and we will take care of you guys, and it will cost us a lot of money, but we'll take care of you anyway. Mm-hmm. And I remember, a short story when we were beginning March, at the same time of the year last year, and mid-March and beginning of beginning of April, and some of our customers already started to feel a huge pain coming from their revenues being crushed, like airlines, entertainment parks, cruise lines, and huge projects were dismantled at that time. And some companies did not have the vision of, keep on investing, although they were living, a moment of an opportunity to reinvent their business. And I felt that at that time, it was great how that entrepreneurial spirit appeared. It was great to see how diversity helped us to be closer to everybody. It was great to see how many initiatives got born from this diversity spirit that we have at Globant. You know, a new program called Be Kind, that has one angle that is be kind with your peers, that includes diversity, but diversity not just on gender, and diversity in terms of way of thinking, in terms of ages, in terms of everything. And how important is that in a crisis? I think it was more evident and more important than ever. And I think it will keep going. It will keep on expanding. At Globant, we launched last year Women That Build Award. That Women That Build Award was, a huge achievement from our team. More than 10,000, candidates. It was very difficult to select them. Who was the winner? I would have sent all of them to the final. And I think that, again, this entrepreneurial spirit connected with diversity in the adversity, I think it was an extremely important combination for success and for maintain the spirit of the team during this huge crisis that we live and we are living.
Thank you so much, Martin. And Martin is also the embodiment of incentives, that through hard work, innovation, you get to, and digitalization, you get to be anywhere in the world, and obviously in a beautiful location, and yet you still could be effective. And so that's the power of digitalization, that's the power of innovation, and we're seeing it firsthand as well, incentivized. Anabel, you've raised significant funding and successfully, obviously, established a large company. So even though there's a strong evidence that startups with diverse teams generate more revenues than all male founding teams, access to VC funding, it's still one of the biggest challenges for women entrepreneurs. So what do you think should be done so that women-led startups can access funding?
Well, I think always it's start with yourself, identify an idea to solve a problem, and work hard from the beginning to demonstrate sustainable growth, because value creation cannot be ignored. So when you're raising capital, what you're doing it's to looking for funding that will buy you time to prove something. So again, with the idea execution, you need to deliver. So we all need to be focused that external support can come, financial support can come from relatives, from friends, from accelerators, C capital, from VCs. But at the end, it's all about you can show growth, and you can sustain that you have a product market fit. So show result. It's something that is inevitable. And we need to step up and look for whatever resources we need in order to execute and deliver.
What do you think needs to happen for more women entrepreneurs to thrive in Latin America and the Caribbean?
Well, I think good jobs are a good example, because we all learn at school, but we learn more at jobs. And so we in any organization, like in ours or in Martin's, we need to promote entrepreneurs that are that could become entrepreneurs. Okay, and we can also from college we can identify great talent that can connect directly to the entrepreneurial community. So it's a collective work, and we need to lead by example. So we just need to promote people, identify those that has huge potential, and give them all the resources that they need to really succeed, whether is it as an employee or to take their own destiny and create their own companies.
And indeed, you're a great example. So the report highlights how a new cohort of these technology-driven companies, which we've been referring to as the Tecnolatinas, are they're positioned to play a big role in the region's recovery. And in the past decade, we've seen the startup ecosystem's value creation at $221 billion, as Ignacio was saying, while traditional industries lost close to $500 billion, as Ignacio presented earlier. So not only that, but companies providing digital solutions to new challenges presented by the pandemic, like we've seen with Rappi, Mercado Libre, et cetera, they've enabled hundreds of millions of people to have access to food, groceries, and clothes, which is why, by the way, I say that the creation of employment, innovation, there's nothing that creates greater socioeconomic impact and therefore development impact
than the generation of jobs and opportunities through innovation and otherwise. And obviously, we're seeing here the potential of these Tecnolatinas. So I still have a couple more questions for Anabel and Martin, but also we're going to take questions from the audience at the end. So I encourage everyone who's listening to please start sending your questions. Let me now ask Martin, you've led innovative companies in the field transformed by the pandemic. And this is, I talk a lot about opportunities created by the pandemic, at least here from the IDB perspective, because I really do believe that there is now, that this could be a decade of opportunity, whether it was the Renaissance after the bubonic plague or the Roaring 20s after World War I and the Spanish flu. There's opportunity to always arise. So how did you respond, and what opportunities you see to the radical changes that the pandemic has left now in the 21st century? And I start with Martin, but also Anabel as well, please.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I will start by talking about the IDB. We have been working for the IDB for the last 5 years, like integrating internal processes and applying artificial intelligence to many things and changing and starting that change. And I believe that, I always say that Globant is a very small company compared to the huge opportunity in which it's mounted. If you see around 100% of the governments, 100% of the institutions, 100% of the companies will need to go through some kind of digital transformation. And this pandemic accelerated this sensation and that sense of urgency. So I believe that the pandemic has accelerated this transformation, and this connects to the former thing that we were talking about the employment generation and how to promote more women into companies. Because, for example, in the case of Globant, we have the commitment to have 50% of female Globers working on our management in 3-4 years time, and we're working very hard on that. That means better job, as Anabel was saying, better jobs for them. That means better opportunity to see new businesses and to start new businesses. So I think that this is crucial for the diversity, for more women working in the field. But this pandemic also, I think, has helped to accelerate these transformation efforts, and hence will accelerate the amount of people that it will be involved in this industry. I mean, companies like Anabel's company, companies like Globant or Mercado Libre, you name it. I mean, there are hundreds, are employing thousands of people around the world, and mainly in Latin America, and that trend won't go away. So it will keep up growing and growing and growing, and trying to cover a trend that is massive and that has pretty much infinite demand. So I see that the pandemic has a huge impact on the amount of companies that will be born, a huge impact on the amount of employment that will be created by these organizations and others, and it will have a huge impact, hence, on the amount of women that will create companies in the future. I think that, from every crisis, you can get something good. And I think this is the good part of this huge and terrible crisis that we're living these days.
Thank you, Martin. And frankly, sorry. And I'm going to go right now to, I just want to add to what Martin said, because leading by example, the digital transformation, those opportunities, we here at the IDB, we just announced a couple of weeks ago, we're launching our own digital transformation so that we can lead by example here at the IDB to serve our clients better which are obviously the countries, and then obviously through IDB Invest the private sector, through IDB Lab, Tecnolatinas and others. And so we want to be able to service our clients better. We're doing our own digital transformation, and hopefully there's a mirror effect there so that governments can then have their digital transformation so they could serve their constituencies, which are their citizens, more transparently, more efficient, more effectively. And that's our goal. And Anabel, same question to you.
Yeah, as a financial technology enabler, we're helping banks, microfinancial institutions to reduce their technology gap and being able to create new and evolving use cases. Since the pandemic, we have accelerated our collaboration with fintechs, merchants, and others that are trying to embed financial services within their product catalog. So everyone, it's looking for new ways to distribute it and bring access to financial services and new remote solutions to allow consumers to pay from wherever they are, including Martin. Okay, they can now pay in a remote way. And that's something fantastic. So everyone is truly committed for that, because what the pandemic confront us was about access. So access is our new lemma. How we can access. So it's all about access, and how can we help our clients to reduce that technology gap or adopt new emerging technologies in a way that is faster, it's more efficient, and cheaper. So they don't need to invest the gigantic amount of money that they used to in order to transform their processes, and we can help to achieve their goals and their digital transformation agenda very quickly.
And there's questions coming in. So actually, I'm going to segue real quick to a question. I'm going to come back because there's a question for IDB Lab, which I think is a very good question. So Irene, I'm going to put you on the spot. She didn't expect this, so this is great. I love putting you on the spot. So, Irene, how can IDB Lab projects help prepare women that then may later be hired by tech companies like Anabel's and Martin's?
Oh, I love the question.
Great
Okay.
question.
So for 3 decades of the existence of IDB Lab before MIF, called MIF, we've developed many models of developing tech talent, not just in terms of hard skills, but also soft skills, including self-confidence and other things that, and how to work collaboratively, how to be a problem solver. And a great example of that is Laboratoria, that several of you probably know. They operate now regionally, very strong in Peru, Chile, and many other countries. And they are a great example of that kind of source of talent, of women that are being taught those future skills. So hopefully many of them will land in the great team that Anabel is leading, that is solving another big problem, which is how to help with access to financial services. So I think it's a great way of creating the future talent, and some of that talent hopefully to become their own entrepreneurs as well.
Great answer. Let me ask a question that came in to both Anabel and Martin. And I'm gonna summarize it. Since you're in the field and you're in the region, what politics do you see, or what policies, I should say, not politics, stay away from politics. I don't want to talk about politics.
Mm-hmm.
What policies in the region do you feel that impose the most restriction to the development of startups? What are some of those restrictions that you've seen, or what are the biggest impediments that you still see in the region, policy-wise or otherwise, regulatorily, et cetera, that you think can actually help stimulate if we're improved?
I would say that and government should put in place procedures that anyone can create a company in a day. So it's too many barriers to even create a company, to incorporate a company, and provide the stimulus to innovate and to hire people. So everyone that it's any entrepreneur is taking a risk, and that risk is to really follow the rules and to invest time and resources to provide services or to distribute a good or a product. So I would say starting from that simple thing to incorporate a company should be something extremely easy.
I could not agree. Martin?
Yeah, I would add a couple of things. I totally agree with you. Talking about the friction of creating a company in many of Latin American countries is a nightmare, and I think that working, that thing to make it easier, to make it frictionless, to have it, as Anabel was saying, in one day. Indeed, in Argentina we had it in one day, and then now we got suspended. So we're going back and forth. I hope that at some point we will end up moving forward. So I think that's one thing. Another thing would be to make the employment regulation to be easier to employ people. I don't know any entrepreneur that is against employing people. I know many entrepreneurs that are very concerned about employing people because of the consequences and complications with processes and complications with the way in which is the legal way to pay them, so on and so forth. And this is something that it gets against the creation of employment, which is the second thing that a company creates. And then the third thing would be how they get access to financing. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that don't have problem to access to financing because they are really high profile. They have the CASEX of this planet to finance them, the venture capital. But then there's many other small companies that are not in that position that should also be financed. And figuring out ways to create seed capital for those companies is extremely important. And the government should have a huge role on pairing that investment in case is not covered by the private sector. So those three things for me are extremely important, and the government has a lot to say in those three things to make it better and easier.
Thank you. I love the creating a business in one day. I've always said there's no secret sauce here to success. And people, when they look at the United States and its innovation, the secret sauce has been simple. It's you can easily create a business, labor mobility, which now digitalization, innovation help us with, because look, Martin, I don't know where Martin is. It's a beautiful place, but he's working just as hard as he would be working elsewhere. And that's the whole point. It gives you that the new generation, a 21st century labor mobility in that regards. And that's and that's ultimately, and then of course rule of law, and that's the secret sauce, and that's what we want in that regards. Let me ask you, as I love this question, both of you. Let me start, Anabel. What's the one piece of it? You're both very young, so don't read anything into it. But even when you were even younger, what is the best piece of advice that you would have given to yourself when you were even younger as an entrepreneur, beginning on this journey that you have led towards creating a successful Tecnolatina?
And I would say that as a woman being raised in LATAM, we always were educated to be humble, to not show off, to do not be so outspoken, just be. But I think we all need to elevate our level of confidence, work hard, and to be really and to think really big. I think that's important to always aspire the moon and trying to reach to be close to the stars. So that's and in that journey, be really humble. I mean, it's a combination of both things. It's to aspire a lot and work hard and stay humble.
Yeah, and as Steve Jobs said, stay foolish. And don't believe that everything needs to be very, complicated. There's many simple ways to do things. Now, one thing that I regret, I should have buy, much cheaper Bitcoins. Talking to my youngest, but taking that out of equation, which is a personal finance decision. Now, I think that going global is one thing I learned, at home from my father, and I won't say that I didn't do that, because that was my first reaction, but it's something that is not really common to see. I mean, it's not very normal to see companies that from day one think global or think regional, and at Globant, that's something that we started from day one, and it's something that I will repeat myself every day. Go global, go big from day one. Don't think that you cannot do it. And it's hard, it's tough when you come from a weird place, from a place that nobody knows, from a university that nobody is in high regards of nobody. It's hard to pay that way, but it's not impossible. So I think entrepreneurs all around the world and even more in Latin America should immediately start their company thinking global and going global as soon as possible. And I will repeat that to myself every day, every possible day.
That's great advice. And there's a question that came in, and which is a great question because it goes right to the heart of one of our priorities and one of my administration's priorities, which has been how can the IDB help early stage startups, which is the most challenging phase for a startup life. And I'm actually going to hand that to Irene because that's what IDB Lab is for. But more than that, I think what's also challenging is what we're focusing on is one of the priorities here that we want to do in this new IDB is really also the continuum. So it's a wonderful segue for Irene to tell us about the continuum between IDB Lab and IDB Invest that we're looking to fill to make sure that we're helping the entire stage of investment here for startups. So Irene?
Thanks, Mauricio. Well, we've seen what the potential of the industry is. We've just seen the tip of the iceberg. We see investments of about $5 billion a year today. It's easy to imagine that it could be in a few years, the $30 billion industry, and it should be more. At IDB Lab, we've specialized in investing from seed to Series A, Series B for the last 3 decades. And with this great impetus, thank you, Mauricio, we are going to take it to the next level. We want to multiply that. We want to do it in collaboration. So we want to do it with many of the more than 50 venture capital funds that we are already partners with and many more to come. We want to also do it directly with them in startup, but also thinking about what happens after. And that's where the continuum comes in. And we want to make sure that as a group, we have a coherent strategy in the verticals where we feel that there is most need, most potential, and where we have most knowledge also to provide, not just financing, so that also then our IDB Invest colleagues can follow on and provide financing in the growth stages of those companies. We have plenty of examples. Actually, we stopped numbering them now because there are so many and they're multiplying. And I think that is a function of the abundance and acceleration of the ecosystem that we're seeing across the region. So we're looking forward to seeing a lot of these opportunities materialize in health tech, in education, in digital for sure payments, and also in many other sectors like agriculture and digital infrastructure.
Let me. This is a good segue I have because for Martin and Anabel. Martin, a great segue on your going global advice. And so there's a question that had come in before, but it's great. So help define that further. Are global companies thought to be global from the beginning, or does it evolve that way? So when you talk about going global early, what do you mean?
Well, I mean exactly that. I think that when you are starting a company, you need to start to think about a market which is not just your local market. Well, us from Argentina, we live that problem of not having a big market for pretty much anything. So it is a condition for you to start a company that you're looking into a global market for your product. So I think that from day one, thinking global is a right way to do. And thinking global means a very simple thing, which is to whom I will sell my product outside, my home country. And indeed, if I can start by that, not selling first in my country, selling first abroad, that will stamp a huge DNA change on your organization, because you need to be prepared for that. And you need to hire the right people for that. I need to have the right process for that, which are totally different from the same processes applied for selling local. So meaning for me, thinking global from day one is starting the company. If you already started, no problem, but now you need to focus on where to sell your product on markets abroad and be successful with that, because that thing will make you much more resilient than any other strategy that you may think for your company. Going global.
And that's a great point and a great segue towards smaller countries that don't have that excuse anymore, and in the sense of traditional commerce, traditional markets, now the world is yours, and therefore it's no longer a disadvantage. Anabel, here's a question, interesting. Are tech giants a threat for smaller startups, or are they rather opportunities?
I think it's a huge opportunities. As Martin was saying, we all can born as a global organization. In our case, we have presence in business in 14 markets. And today there are so many technologies available that you can build a global company with little resources, or so little resources, because you have the mobile technology, internet, you have cloud technology, you have now new ways to collaborate and integrate with others, like the API technology. So it's more mainstream today. So you can really build a global company easy and collaborate even with bigger companies. Like the Martin companies like Globant or Google or Facebook, whoever that doesn't understand the localized things that are relevant to expand. So that is a combination of how you can reach to multiple markets, but at the same time, how you can interpret local market needs, even with the common solutions. So I think this is a moment for collaboration. Nobody can win and conquer the world alone. And I think technology is here to bring access. Again, I want to use that word again, access for a better quality of life for all of us. Access to education. Tech now is here to stay. Access to telemedicine is here to stay. Access to transportation, and access for remote work. And that gives us the opportunity to build a diverse and multi-Americas organizations.
So let me kind of, as we start putting this all in perspective, let me kind of, to summarize what you both say, let me start, Anabel, with you. Mm-hmm. So what is your biggest takeaway, just to summarize? I'm sure we've heard it here, but just to like summarize, what is your biggest takeaway on how technology can improve lives and help us recover from this crisis?
And that it's everything, it's ready for all of us to reach out others. So I was so fortunate to participate in We Exchange a couple of months ago, and I'm here. So I never anticipated to have this opportunity. So I appreciate that, and I feel blessed for that opportunity. It was because I received an email and an invitation. So I took the risk and I accept the challenge and I participate. So it's again, it's how we and connect. We access to each other. We create more trust, okay, through this means. I mean, we have Martin in the beach. Again, I'm going to use you, Martin. And he's one of the most respectful entrepreneurs in Latin America. I mean, because he's in the beach and with the t-shirt doesn't mean anything. Okay. So, and that's fantastic. So I think most of the, I mean, for me, it's to keep going, keep looking to build an amazing team, to serve my customer in the best way possible, and to grow.
Martin, let me ask you the same question, and also let me follow up to something you said, Martin, because you said about your journey and maybe not the right school, not the right neighborhood, et cetera. A lot of things that sound familiar and I can relate to myself. And where is that talent? What can we do to continue to help untap the talent and provide those opportunities that are all throughout the region and the countries of the region?
Mauricio, I think that's a great question. By the way, having a t-shirt and being on the beach is the right thing to do. At this time.
I agree.
Now, going back into the question, the first thing we always say at Globant, that talent is equally distributed around the world. And the only thing you need to do is to understand how to discover that talent. Imagine that talent is like gold, and you need to mine that gold, and it's equally distributed everywhere. And you need to find it and not starting to judge, for example, for a city. I mean, yeah, if I go to this X city, I don't want to mention any city. If I don't go to this city or this other city, talent will be better than if I go to these other cities. I think that's untrue, and we have proven by our own, execution of how Globant got developed. Now we are just in Argentina, in 12 cities in the interior of Argentina, where we got amazing talent. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is to understand the word talent by itself. And I think, there's a great book out there I recommend to everyone that is called Talent is Overrated. You should read it. Because talent doesn't mean exactly IQ. I mean, you cannot measure talent through IQ. The understanding of the word talent needs to be different. Talent needs to be connected to things that are more connected to practice than anything else. So I always say to my Glovers and to everyone I can, if you are a gifted person and you think that you inherit your talent, then there's something wrong with you. I mean, I believe that talent is something that gets created by practice, by practicing more than anyone else, that by practicing up to a level that is painful, by being very insistent on things, by making differences out of your commitment, making difference out of how fast you learn or how fast you unlearn, making differences on how you get on with people, on how people like you or don't like you, on things that makes the whole experience of working with you a whole new thing. And by the way, if I need to measure my best performers, I'm sure they have a huge IQ, but they have not been selected for that. They have been selected because all those things that we call talent, how fast they learn, fast learners, great team players, very committed with the cause, very committed with themselves, very committed with their teams, people that are having fun, people that can teach others. Those are extremely valuable things, and we need to understand talent in the right way. So fostering the talent in Latin America for me means, number one, not having a preconception on where that talent is. Talent is everywhere. Go find it. That's number one. And second is review your definition of talent. Talent is something different from what everybody normally think about, having a great IQ or having a great way of solving, algorithms. That's totally away from a talented person. Just go to read that book. That is Talent is Overrated. I don't remember the author, but it made a huge dent on my understanding of the talent itself.
Then I can't think of a better way to close, in the sense, I mean, look, on my first day as IDB president, October 1st, I said, I come from Florida. I come from Miami. I'm of Latin American descent, but I was born and grew up in Miami. And I grew up with communities of people from the 26 borrowing nations of this bank. And they came to Miami with different educations, with different backgrounds, with different talents, et cetera. And at the end of the day, they found an opportunity to succeed because the opportunity to create that business in one day was there, et cetera. And that's what we need to mirror to the region. The human capital in the region is unquestionable. The talent there at all scales across the board, no matter what school you went to, what city, what town you're from, is there. And with the opportunity, they can thrive. And that's the message. And human capital. And what we've learned today, and Anabel, I can't think of a better example on International Women's Day. You are a story of success. You are a story of hard work, of dedication, and showing the overcoming a lot of the obstacles to succeed in this field. And Martin, I couldn't have paid you. I can't afford you, but I couldn't have paid you enough to actually be there in a t-shirt in a beach because frankly, it shows the incentive. It's the incentive. Like, you worked hard. You can do what the hell you want from where you want, and be in that regard flexible. And so you've inspired women, young people that just want to work hard and succeed and have flexibility in life. So thank you for being examples. And thanks to everyone who's joined us and participated in this fascinating discussion today. Again, Anabel, Martin, thank you. Thank you for the insights. Ignacio, thank you for the wonderful presentation. I'm excited. We will not commit malpractice from the IDB. We're going to follow up on this. A huge opportunity, huge ecosystem. I mean, that's the GDP of the biggest economies in the region. Like, come on, this is a no-brainer, right? So I hope everyone like me is feeling inspired, obviously, and convinced that together we can overcome this crisis and come out stronger than ever. Again, Wonderful report, Ignacio. Thank you for shedding the light on the current state and promising future of the startup ecosystem in Latin America and the Caribbean. And of course, thank you, Irene, as always, CEO of IDB Lab, through which the IDB Group, us, is supporting entrepreneurs, investors, and other ecosystem players across our region day in and day out. And I invite all of you, focus, scan the QR code that is now appearing on the screen to read the full report. It's hopefully we can provide good information and also inspiration, a pathway to success for everyone. So thank you so much. What a great event. I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate International Women's Day. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to the team here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Time with a
Thank you.
suit.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.